who decided that short hair is for men and long hair is for women? Society, to be frank, dating back centuries, as suggested by historic paintings, statues, and artifacts. Autumn Whitefield-Madrano, the author of Face Value, The Hidden Ways Beauty Shapes Women's Lives, pointed out recently, and correctly in an issue of Psychology Today, that was a fact. She said, quote, "Certainly in our culture, hair length is a loose, societal, structured form of sexual dimorphism, or a trait that differentiates between the sexes," end quote. Celebrities have defied social constructs for decades, including gender-based hair, but they are the anomalies. Most people follow convention, wearing their hair lengths and styles deemed socially acceptable. But that is until now. Long and short gender-based hair is evolving and becoming more fluid. You know that the radical GOP just loves this. This week's hot topic is, why are some hairstyles considered male or female? What do y'all think?
I think this is an attack on my lesbian haircut, and I'm not standing for it for another minute, Al Ferguson.
I've noticed that.
But no, seriously, but with long hair, there's a reason why like drag queens do bigger hair. It makes their face look smaller. It's really trying to kind of force that the women are the smaller and the cuter. And when you don't have any hair, it makes your facial features look bigger, more dominant. But yeah, I think it's all BS. Now moving forward.
I also think it's all BS. I mean, also, if we look back in history, we see that it was popular for men to have long hair for the longest time, alongside women. So I don't even necessarily agree with this like assertion that this assertion that this is like the differentiating or a significant differentiating factor throughout history, because it's not really the case. If you look back throughout history, that men have had long hair for going back
Greeks,
eons.
Romans.
Going back eons, exactly. And it's really a relatively new phenomenon that we see over the past 200 years, that we've seen short hair become like the male thing or the man thing. Yeah, so I don't even agree with this.
I started thinking about it the way that you're talking about it, like the long hair, like biblical times, men had long hair and everything. And I think it actually has to do with beauty. I think long hair, when it's well kept and oiled and, coiffed, is beautiful. Yeah. And I think whichever sex is supposed to be beautiful and is kind of who has the long hair in that society. And I think in a lot of older past civilizations, men, like the male standard of beauty was the ultimate perfection. And I think having that long hair just like tousled and blowing in the wind, was more acceptable for men at that time, because they were just seen as the better, the more evolved sex. So I think now, in our American society, women are supposed to be beautiful, men are supposed to be muscular, that can protect women. And I think that kind of standard of beauty is there. I do agree with many of the hairstylists who are saying that if you have long hair, regardless if you're a male or a female, it takes longer for me to cut your hair. So I want to be able to charge the same price. And I'd like to say I am against all of that, because I have shorter hair and I don't want to have to pay for a women's priced haircut the same way that a man has to pay for when I have my hair longer. So, I mean, selfishly, I'm against it, but, in my heart, I'm for it. And thank you for coming to my Trini talk.
Yeah, I was going to say, and do we agree with that observation that through history, the more beautiful of the sex was the longer hair?
I think maybe to some extent, but I think that the ways in which we classify beauty, the ways in which we associate different physical traits with personality traits or things like that is varied so widely across geographic area, across time, so significantly. And so I think that I feel like it's so much more complex and so much more fluid than that. And that's why we've seen that change.
Does it make any difference in terms of the reflection of beauty and the hairstyle for men and women? Does it make any difference if you're gay looking at, let's say gay men looking at men, or gay men looking at women? Do we digest hair length differently because of our sexual orientation?
Well, I think we have to. I mean, just from the very first TikTok here, you can't just make the assumption from across the room that because you see short hair on the side and a cute little flip up front, that
You're a lesbian?
you are really one to talk Castle. I can't believe nobody on this panel has called you out for how lesbian that. Look at it. That is hennaed and curled, ready
It's
for the
beauty.
lesbian.
Do you
month.
know
This
that
is
takes
beauty
3
right
hours
here.
to get it to that too?
Just to look that bad?
Probably.
I woke
Well,
up this day.
Mark will.
We can tell.
Really. What
There's
was
no
the,
gel in here.
the romance novels, the women's romance novels?
Oh, like
Daniel
Fabio.
Fabio.
Yeah.
Fabio's long flowing hair. I watched a documentary once upon a time that Fabio was a model for many, many of straight women's romance novels. They were considered light and fluffy, kind of mildly titillating genre for straight women. And for them, a study concluded that that kind of hair mane that Fabio represented was absolutely beautiful for women. Now, gay men probably would have looked at that and said, oh, absolutely not. So,
No, I'll tell you why. Because if you Game of Thrones, what's that guy's name that you all like? Jason Momoa. Like what everybody was into Jason Momoa. It has to do with if you have muscles or not. If you have muscles and you're all portraying like a masculine sensibility, then the long hair is fine because then it can be beautiful and then you can admire them
But
as
I
being
think
beautiful.
the question is our perception different and looking at that person attractive versus not? From a gay perspective, I would say I think that it is. I think you would have gay men in a higher proportion saying that they don't really like long hair, whereas I think women probably have about maybe a third up to a half that would say
that's what the study concluded, is that women liked men with long flowing
So
hair.
you would rather cut Jason Momoa's hair short in
in
Game
a
of Thrones?
heartbeat. Whatever the other part of the question is, the answer is yes.
And where on what part of the body do we want to?
Oh.
That gets me into all kinds
Just
of
don't want it in my
We
face
should
when
have
we're
that
on
as a
top of
topic
you.
because I have a lot to say on that.
All right. We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ plus evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ plus community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ plus community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.